You're watching Mugen TV RPG Haven. Experience a fantasy like no other.
Hey guys, it's MugenLord here, and I'm back again with another video. And before we dive into today's topic, if you haven't checked out my last video regarding Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary stream, where I gave my thoughts on the information and details they have given us as far as the Final Fantasy VII franchise is concerned, if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on that, definitely go check that video out. So let us dive right into today's topic. Today I want to talk about how will the development team approach party management and combat changes heading into Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2? Because, as you may know, when it comes to JRPGs, once you gain over, I guess, the required party member amount, when you go over 3 or maybe 4 party members that you can use at a time during battle, you're pretty much going to have inactive party members, or party members essentially left on reserve. So now that we have Final Fantasy VII Remake in front of us and it's been released and we had a chance to actually play the game, how would they handle that moving into part 2 of the game? Now that we're going to have more members besides Cloud, Aerith, Barrett, and Tifa. We have Red XIII. Now we can assume that we're going into part 2 that Red XIII and Yuffie are going to be playable characters, and depending on how far we head into the story of part 2 and where it may take us, we could possibly also have Kate Sith join the party. So that's more party members that's added into the roster. So if you play the original Final Fantasy VII Remake, you have up to 3 party members in a battle at a time. So the other characters are left on reserve. You was pretty much given like a mobile device where you call up the other party members during the overworld or even the save points, and allow you to switch the characters in and out as you pleased. And you can only have up to 3 members in battle. So how would they approach, this going into the remake? Now we all know that the combat is much different. It's not turn-based like the original. This one is more action-oriented. And if you look at how the game is being handled and how the story goes, Cloud and Party are now traveling together, so they are constantly on the move. So it just doesn't make sense for inactive members to just disappear off the screen. So to keep things, to me, cohesive, I will assume that they will take another approach to party management. So I took some time out to really think about this for a bit and how the development team could possibly handle party management moving into part 2 of the remake. Now, do you remember in the last video, or my Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness video, which I advise you go check it out if you haven't checked it out. I appreciate the feedback that you guys left. But in the video, I talked about how Square Enix began experimenting with how party management can be done differently than their previous titles. And in Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness, Square Enix allows you to have all your party members accounted for on the field at once, even down to the combat. So you're able to use all your characters, switch between them, and everybody gain experience points. No one is missing, no one is left out. And this is something like a trend that Square Enix has been playing around with, because games like Infinite Undiscovery, which was released on the Xbox 360, there was a party management mechanic where you have your teams broken up into groups. You have Team A, Team B, C, D, so forth and so on, and you're allowed to divide your parties up. So characters that were inactive that you weren't currently using can be in other parts of the party, and then once you go out into the open field, those party members continue ahead and they gain their experience points once you finish that open field segment. And I thought that was pretty cool that every party member is accounted for. And then if you look at Star Ocean The Last Hope as well, you're able to pretty much switch your characters in and out of battle as well, which I thought was pretty cool. So everybody is getting experience points, and it's not a struggle to determine or when and where you want to pull characters in and out, at a time. So since they are on a journey, having all your party members on screen, with you seem like the approach that they may take. So now that we have that set aside, and I believe this is something that they could possibly pull off, how would this affect the combat system? Because changes would definitely have to be made. And in my opinion, there was maybe some hints that the developers had left with us, found in the Integrate DLC with the whole Yuffie and Sonon synergy mechanic. Now, Hamaguchi said it himself that he wanted to implement this system as well in part 2 moving forward, which there was an article stated from Tweaktown. By including an element in Final Fantasy VII Remake episode intermission where Yuffie and So9 synergize with each other, the battles have been rearranged into having a different strategic feel. And I think we were able to depict the bond between Yuffie and So9 by using the synergy inherent in the gameplay. So, of course, I like to expand upon these cooperative elements, which we tried out in Final Fantasy VII Remake episode intermission in the next game as well. So this is something that they definitely want to approach, and I figured that when I played the game, that this is something that they're not going to just waste this just on this 2-hour DLC. This has to be like some form or some experiment that they wanted to play around with to see how it works, to see how the fans also respond and react to it, and see what the fans come up with the combat system, and maybe they'll try to improve it or enhance it moving into part 2. To me, how this would work, in my opinion, in the combat system is that you have 3 active party members. Now, the other party members, of course, are inactive. You won't be able to use them, and they pretty much behave on their own. But I think what would be pretty cool, since you can't use the other party members and they are on the field with you together, it would be nice to where there's a gameplay mechanic within the menu where you can be able to link certain inactive party members to your active party members. So say for instance you have Yuffie as an inactive character, maybe you can link Yuffie to Barrett or Tifa or Aerith or Cloud, and you can link those two together, and then you're allowed to synergize with that linked characters like Yuffie or Red XIII, you know, to those characters, and you be able to formulate different type of team up attacks. I can imagine if the dialogues that these characters would have when you link these characters together. I can imagine the different dialogue trees that the developers would have to come up with, and I wouldn't be surprised if any of the dialogues get leaked out somehow within the course of 2022 when it comes to that. But I think it would be pretty cool. And I mean, Tales of Arise have a system similar to that utilizes your inactive party members in a unique way, to where since I'm not using these characters, I can still use them to come out and use their special move to pretty much capitalize and add onto the combo counter to pretty much break the enemies and so forth and so on. So I think this would definitely create interesting battle moments and setups against certain enemies, and especially boss fights. I think it would be unique boss fights that would be pretty cool, that take advantage of the synergy mechanic. And I think this is something that they want to play around with even more, and I think this would be a cool way to allow you to have all your party members on the field at once. And even though you can't use them because they're inactive, you can still use them in a way, and you still have to look out for them in a way because you still have their MP, they still have their HP, and they're all still accounted for and still be able to gain experience points. And like I said before, this was all hinted from the DLC, and we have gotten hints of it within the last chapters of Final Fantasy Remake Part 1, trying to rescue Aerith. So I just think this is a cool aspect, and I think this would be definitely a cool approach that they could take with this. So everybody's accounted for, and I just think it just take all the stress and pressure off of, you know, having to contemplate whether who you want to be in your party, who you don't want to be in your party. Everybody's leveled up, so when you get to segments in the game, if the story separates the characters, everybody's leveled up accordingly, and you have to worry about it. So that's pretty much essentially my thoughts and what I think about how they could approach the party management in the combat system. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this approach to party management in the combat moving into Final Fantasy Remake Part 2? I think this is an interesting take, or an interesting spin on the traditional way of how Final Fantasy handle their combat system and how they handle party management. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts. So if you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to stay up to date to anything JRPG or just Final Fantasy related, hit that bell to be notified. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.